These days, our life is like who is doing vlog. I don't know if I'm doing vlog these days. I'm just doing what I know I want to do. Maybe because I have excessive data on my phone. Let me not speak like a typical Nigerian guy. Um, Stay close to the mirror. There's a great announcement that I am supposed to make today. And the announcement is that I am the enlightened one would be. I'm doing great. Good morning, sir. Good morning, sir. Mr. Sun Odu. Come. Yeah. Yeah. Um. So, good morning, everyone. Hopefully, my clipper is not making so much noise. This is an announcement that I would like to share with you guys. By 7 p.m. today, African time. I and the enlightened one will be coming live, and I think we have finally booked our time to be having a deep conversation on stuff that will be so important. A lot of conversation. We are going to be diving deep on different subjects. Oh, since it's raining, it's raining right now. So we are going to be discussing on things that has to do with both enlightened part of us and so many subjects. I don't want to give out much details what we are going to be talking about, but I just want to say for those who will be live around African time 7 p.m. yeah, please do not forget to join our live video. Now that brings me to what I intend saying today. Part of the things I want to discuss about today. Which is the fact that last week I had an intention of having some live video with different people who I actually booked. About 2 weeks ago, we had a booking for live video and the rest of it. And most of the bookings, it's either they are not making out time or they could not meet up with the time. It's either they fall sick. It's either network is bad. It's either they could not meet up with the appointment we had. That was what happened since 2 weeks ago. That has been the challenge. And every single time this incident happens, I still come on live and I still talk about the situations or whatever comes to my mind. I didn't take it to heart that, oh, I got disappointed by few people, or it's not because they deliberately want to disappoint me. Some might even intend to disappoint. But I wasn't reactive to any of the situations because life happens to people. Regardless, I come live. I was in 1,700 last week subscribers. Up until Saturday, up until Sunday, I was at 1,900 and something. And yesterday, I got to almost 2,044, 45 subscribers. Now, there's a lesson in it. Whenever all the situations were happening, when I got disappointed, even in fact, I had my sister who was supposed to join me live. My sister had a network issue and so she could not meet up. I booked with different appointment and I was like telling my audience, oh, I'm going to be coming live with someone and this and this. And it kept happening over and over again. And I'm like, well, what's really going on? But one thing I did was I surrendered myself to the situation and I understand that man cannot be in control of everything in life. You cannot. Regardless of your intentions to do certain things that are good, regardless of the intentions of you want to maybe call it ministering to people or whatever, you sometimes will feel
even when you have the resources, when you have the other things, something can just pop up and you fail. Good morning, Rusty. Good morning, Rusty. I hope you got the message. I sent you a message this morning. So, regardless of our intentions in life, sometimes things happen and we fail. But I kept on doing whatever I had to do. Okay.
I'm staying close to the mirror because I don't want to make mistake while I make decisions while I'm shaving myself.
Some people would say I'm an handsome guy. The secret to my handsomeness is in my beard. If you take off my beard, I'm no more handsome. So I'm careful with it.
Olade, are you okay? Alright.
So part of the things I've been able to figure out is sometimes in life, regardless of your plan, things might not work exactly how you want them to work. Just read it, bro. Um, Rusty, um, I and the enlightened one, we spoke at length. We talk sometimes. We talk sometimes. And I don't know, maybe this is the only time I would say you might not be getting the picture. Um, I understand your angle, and I understand the enlightened one's angle. Now, before before I make any decision um, to speak about exactly, these conversations, I and the enlightened one, we are supposed to be having by God's grace. We should be having a live video by 7 p.m. today. We are going to be coming live. And I would also appreciate you if you're going to be joining. But there's something I would want to make clear. Now, if you realize part of the story the enlightened one spoke about, the enlightened one touched on something that was important. And he said that the journey of his spirituality was mixed with the idea of religion. The journey of his spirituality was part of religion. And because he said spirituality was part of his religion, trust me, he said there was a time that he had an experience. And that experience was changed his mindset about religion. I, as a person, have been religious since I was a child. Since I was a baby, I have been a religious person. Now, I understand when people just accept Christ or when people um, when people are newly born again, there is a view of life they have that is totally different from those who have been on a different, maybe you have been in religion for a very long time. Now, both of them can have the same spiritual experience, but some people will attribute their spiritual experience to the religion. Just like some people would take DMT or ayahuasca and they will attribute their spirituality to ayahuasca and DMT. Some people take weed, and because they have experience of weed, they would attribute their spirituality. Maybe they have certain experiences, or they can write some music and good things whenever they take weed. They begin to perceive in their mind that the reason why they can get to that spiritual or inspirational side of them is basically because of the substance they took. The substance they took is not what gave them that spiritual experience. It was that the spiritual experience was already inside of them. They did not know. There is no substance we take as human beings that turn on something that is not already inside of us. Everything we experience as people, maybe we take weed, DMT, ayahuasca, whatever you take and you experience any spiritual side of you, delusion, illusion, those things already exist somewhere inside of you, but you have not noticed those part of you. Nah. Okay, that is why if you read the message I sent to you, I said that off YouTube, let's just discuss. Let's just talk. Let's at least know each other. Let's just know each other. And I think it will be a benefit. You can make a decision not to engage later, but at least hear from this other side. I think it is going to be kind of interesting in my own. And I think it can be something we decide to do once in a week, once in 2 weeks, once in a month, depending. But you have interesting perspective. The same thing, that was the same way I kind of knew the enlightened one. Due to his perspective, I was like, wow, this person is interesting. Now, we might misunderstand certain people's point. And trust me, every single time I spoke with the enlightened one, he spoke highly of you. He spoke highly of you. So, and I know sometimes you might be perceiving it because you may have difficulties trusting people, but he spoke highly of you. We both talk highly of your perception. It seems kind of interesting. I have a different perception on how I view things. You have a different perception on how you view things. He has a different perception. And if we are looking at, okay, these three ways of viewing things, if we can work something out, it might be something very interesting in the future. Interesting in the fact that we might be able to do some things that are going to be positive. We ain't doing any of it like, okay, we want money. That's the purpose behind anything we are saying. He isn't billing me to come to his live show. I'm not billing him to come to my live show. Nobody is billing anybody. We are just rubbing minds. And out of it, we are learning things. Sifrin Cool. Hello, good day. So I was actually speaking on whatever you think, Rusty, just let me know. But I will tell you this. Don't think that the enlightened one is upset. He might be thinking, yes, enlightened one might be thinking that, oh, maybe if I say something, you might not get the picture. You might not get the picture, or you might misunderstand him. Like when you said he's trying to make you people afraid. When you're looking at people speaking from a religious standpoint, when people speak from a religious standpoint, Rusty, you are very difficult. When people speak from religious standpoint, every religion talks about heaven and hell. You understand? So when he's talking about marriage having issues or stuff like this, is between God and man, he's going to see it from the angle of God. We call these things divinity, we call it universe, we call it all kinds of stuff, we call it the source of life. The reason why most of us, maybe I and you, might not want to always use God as an example is basically because we understand that the perception or definition people call God is like an entity that is like a man that gets upset, that is very emotional and stuff like that. So we kind of use other language. They would always use, because the foundation of religion has been set for people to see God as something, maybe a king, something like that, an entity. But that entity does not embody human characteristics. That's what we actually know, that the source of life does not embody human characteristics. Tells me to fear God, not the wife. Okay, I pointed out fear of God is not to be used that way. Fear of God is having a deep respect, reverence, and awe for God's power and authority. You know, in the religious perspective, like in the Christian part, they say the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. What does that particular statement mean if we have to take the religious context out of it? Now, you said something, you said respect. When you honor nature, nature takes good care of you. When you respect nature, nature takes good care of you. When you abuse nature, nature abuses you. So there are a lot of sickness that we have in today's world simply because we abuse nature. We take out all the trees from the ground. Rather than us to eat organic food, we begin to pollute the ground with different kind of things just to make sure food grows, even not at their accurate time. So knowing, if you have experienced both sides of it, for me, I would say I have experienced both the religious part of life, and when religious people speak to me, I can easily understand what they are saying. And I can also go out from the religious part and see it from a different angle. And to see it from a different angle, you can see it from the spiritual sense. And in the spiritual sense, there is there's only the principles there. There's only the message there. It does not attribute itself to any specific thing because everything are all in one. But when people are being religious, they see things most likely from the angle of an entity and you. There's still that individuality in the religious perspective, even though they might be spiritual. When you are fully spiritual, and this is the reason why I say that spirituality is growth. It's not about being a professional. No one is a professional when spirituality is concerned. Spirituality is just a growth. That means you develop in one stage today, tomorrow you develop in another stage. Trust me, the person that comes today might be more spiritual than you that have been there for a long time, maybe 10 years. You must just continuously grow. It must always interest you to dive into that path. So when you're seeing things from the spiritual sense, there is no individuality in it. It's not about me or she. It's not about I and them. It's not about me and God. It's about everything synchronizing at once, knowing the principle behind you, animals, everything that combines themselves together. The first time you spoke about the enlightened one, I felt like maybe I was thinking perhaps you both know each other somewhere before, or you've related before. That was how I perceive it until as time goes on, I realized, oh, you guys have never spoken. But it will be very interesting, at least hearing from his own side. And you see, this is what I think most people will call like call it, is it democracy or whatever they call it? Most men think it's okay to cheat if they don't get caught. When he said that, I lost all respect. Oh, he said most men think it is okay to cheat if they don't get caught. Rusty, probably you are not breaking it down completely. You said most men think it is okay to cheat if they don't get caught. I think that is the perception of most men. Most men. LOL, he has not spoken to most men in the world. Now, what do we classify as most men? And I'm not trying to defend the enlightened one. I'm just trying to understand where he's coming from and where you might not see where he's actually coming from. Now, when you use the word most men simplifies what are we seeing today generally? What do we see on social media today generally? And Rusty, you might not agree, but most people's reality is based on social media because that is what is put in front of us every single now and then. A lot of information most of us know is basically a lot of things that a lot of us know or we discuss about is basically things that has to do with what we have experienced through social media. Some people speak about things that they've not even encountered one-on-one. So when he said most men, look at the conversations that have been going on many podcasts, countless of podcasts on social media. You listen to a lot of guys saying a word like, it is okay for a man to cheat. That's what most men say. It is okay for a man to cheat, a woman cannot cheat. It is okay for a man to cheat. It becomes the average mentality of people. And trust me, when he says the word most men, now, majority of the older men might be, let's just assume, the majority of the older men in today's generations are, out of 100% of men, let's say older generations are at 30%. Then the what do we call it? The youths are maybe 40%, and the younger ones are coming up. Now, the people who get influenced are the youths and the teenagers that are just coming up. Yeah, you might say some men. This is just misunderstanding of statement. He could use most men when he wants to say some men. If you actually capitalize on that, I have made countless of mistakes. When I'm supposed to use most, I use some. When I'm supposed to use some, I use most. It is the narration or the intention behind the message. That's what we can focus on. And I think his message that day was just basically to say that you might think that it is okay for you to cheat on your spouse as a man, but you need to know that it is beyond you just cheating between you and your spouse. There's something that you are not aware of. Now, they may attribute what you're not aware of to be God. But what we actually mean by that statement could be the consequences of your action. I don't know if you're getting it. Sometimes people would say that um, if you cheat, you are not cheating just on your wife, you're cheating on God. What you're saying is that there is a spiritual consequence to your actions. And if you're not aware of the spiritual consequence, or let's just say the repercussions of your actions, you might be ignorant of the fact that you think you are convincing someone that you are doing what is right, but you are going to pay the price along the line. Now, he said and deleted his comment. Elevate, you should know better. Trying to call out most men means it's what is his personal view. He thinks it's okay to cheat if not caught. That's all it is, using most men as an excuse to be able to say it. This would have all made sense if you can even hear from his own side of the story, and then you guys even discuss and talk about it. That might have made more, it might have made it like, if we actually want it to be fruitful, trust me, what if, let us ask ourselves this question, what if you think those are the things he meant, and you come to points to have a discussion with him someday and realize that it wasn't even, that wasn't what he meant. Yeah, we know Western when they play that game. They do, absolutely. I would think, Rusty, the best thing you can do is to give him a chance and listen from his own angle. And I think you most likely might misunderstand his point. Because everything he was saying while we were having the discussion, after we were done discussing, I had to reflect on everything and I was able to break it down. Because whenever I bring people to the show, or whenever I interview people or have conversations with people, I always want to give them time to speak up their piece, and not just their piece. I try to understand what they are saying, and I don't want to interrupt. Most conversations, I don't want to interrupt. But everything he was saying, everything the enlightened one touched on that day, I truly understand everything he was saying. Now, trust me, I wouldn't say that everything we both spoke on are absolutely correct. I don't even believe everything I talk about is absolutely correct. No. I think I make mistakes sometimes. I think no words are absolute. Yeah. It's radical and hateful. I can't condone that. But most of his perceptions, most of his views are some views that I, as a person, I kind of share almost similar views to some of these things. I use the word similar views, or most of his views. I think some of his views I agree with a lot of them. And the difference between his views and mine are just little, just little. Maybe the situation is that I can break it down. Whatever he says, I can kind of break it down to a place in my mind that actually tries to understand him. And I'm not looking at how he words out his opinion, but I'm looking at it from what he actually meant. I'm actually looking at it from what he actually meant by what he's saying. You know, you can say things that you really don't mean. On the wife, he showed potential, but then it went off on one again. Okay. Okay. I think most of it will all make sense if we still give our time to listen to him. And well, by God's grace, I'm expecting we are supposed to be having a live video today by 7 p.m. African time. He said that will be in the daytime in the US, but that will be 7 p.m. African time. To be a time in life when you accept, you have to answer to your wife, not just God. Hmm. There has to be a time in life when you accept you have to answer to your wife, not just to God. That is deep because I have a different view on it. Yeah, my views. I think that there is a level at which we have put humans in life that regardless of any pedestal we create for humans, humans always end up disappointing us. And this is the reason why humans are not 100% reliable. And we, as people who are in a relationship with that person, we can always sense the error of that human being. And when you begin to understand that someone is just a human, we would be saying something within our mind subconsciously that this is just a human, this is just an imperfect person. Why a lot of us make decisions, for example, not to cheat? In my own view, why I would say I don't condone cheating in my relationship for me as a person is basically because I have to look at it from my own view. And I have to ask myself, how would I feel if someone does something like this to me? What is the potential danger in stuff like this? I have to look at it from the spiritual sense, from the spiritual sense is how can I say that I am a spiritual being and I don't give a damn about what my flesh does? That means, in the spiritual sense, the major thing you have when it comes to the spiritual realm is what we call love. All this idea of God, God in heaven, God in the backyard, King of King, and all of that, whatever anyone says, when you become spiritually inclined, the only thing that is left with you is love and how to harmonize everything in life, because everything becomes union. You realize that the breath you breathe is the breath the other person takes. you understand that the only difference between us is our intellect, and our intellect is as a result of our past experience, and the experience has to come with our environment. So when I make a decision in my life with my family, I have to look at it from a bigger, broader picture. If I don't cheat on my wife, I look at it from the picture of my children. I look at it from the picture of my community. I have to see it from the picture of the society. I have to see it from the picture of, if I want to be a leader to young teenagers or to young youths in the future, how will I be a good leader? By teaching them something that I cannot even practice. So, teaching my son to be a honest person, I don't want my son to figure out one day that I was there teaching him everything about honesty and discipline and principle, and one day he discovered that his dad, who was teaching him these things, could not even be honest with his mom. I have to look at it from my daughter's angle, to say that when my daughter make a decision to get married in life, she wouldn't think that it is okay for her to get married to a man who constantly cheats on her because her father does it to her mother. So I cannot just look at it from the angle of just my wife, because if I look at it from just my wife, there are days as a married man that we wake up and we don't feel that enthusiasm. Is it enthusiasm they call it? That excitement of being with that same person. You might not feel it, but because you have a bigger consciousness beyond just you and that particular individual, it gives you the the ability to understand that even if you are not feeling what you want to feel right now, it is okay to still look at it from the broader part, from the bigger point. So I wouldn't say that the reason why I don't cheat is because of my wife. No, no. I wouldn't say it's because of my wife. That's why I don't cheat. If it is because of my wife, the day she offends me, the day we are in disputes, then that particular day, I can make decision to cheat because she provokes me. But if I'm looking at it through the conscious or spiritual aspect, to know that the journey of humanity, I am part of who is going to impact in a smaller way, not like I'm going to impact the whole world, but in a smaller dimension of what I can impact within my own environment. I can do much good by instilling discipline and principle that can be useful to my children. I have said different things about my dad, how I learned a few things from my dad. My dad died when I was 8 years old, but I'm still living based off the principle of what I saw in the life of my dad. Between the age of 4 and the age of 8, I only experienced my dad in my entire life for 4 years, and I live by his principle till date. So looking at it from the angle that it's just going to be my wife, and I don't think my wife also have to be loyal to me because of me. There's something that should be bigger than me and her. She has to look at the future of the family. She has to look at our culture, to respect our culture and traditions, because if I think it is okay to break my tradition and culture or spiritual path, and she thinks it's okay to break our culture and spiritual path, then that means we are destroying not just me and I in the relationship. We are saying that everything our culture stood by, the principles of our culture and tradition, doesn't mean anything. Okay, you said something. Exactly. I have been cheated on and I know how it feels. God plays no part in me deciding not to cheat. That is the angle you are coming from. I completely agree with you on that particular aspect. I completely agree with you. Is that the only thing is this? This is the reason why I said in the spiritual sense, there's what we call growth. You can only see growth. And growth is this: you might see things in this particular view, and as time goes on, that view begins to expand. When someone speaks from a religious view, when the person says God, I would say, I would definitely say, when someone talks to me and the person is religious, if the person say God, in my mind, I would say the universe, the source of creation. I would say the divinity. Because I understand that if I have to buy in the idea of the person saying God, then if I don't believe in the entity of God, God in their own, in some people's definition, is a God of, the one that controls everything, the one that tells men to move like this and women go like this and turn the king upside down, stuff like that. I don't believe in that. But if I have to focus on the idea that you said God and I don't want to agree that is God, then what I am actually doing is that rather than us to progress on the conversation, I would lose understanding and then we will be stopped. So it's okay for the person to say God. I would just say the divine. And the conversations continue. So marriage is a lifelong commitment. It's not going to be easy. The moment it gets hard and you decide to cheat, you failed your marriage purely because of your own desires. 1000%. 1000%. 1000%. Rusty, you have become very famous on this on this show. You have become very famous. Part of the thing is that, see, this is what I would do. Okay, I want enlightened one to realize if he wants to spread Christianity, fear is not the way to do it. It could be a voice for good, but right now his voice is misguided by radical opinions. Um, okay, I think I can picture where you are coming from. Now, the reason why I can picture where you're coming from is in the story of the enlightened one, he said something about Buzlin when he went to a place to drink. And the day he had to make a covenant that he wasn't going to drink again, the plane was shaky. And so, because the plane was shaky, and later he opened the Bible and he read it, that fear inside of him made him kind of accept because he was afraid. And then looking at that storyline, coming back to the idea of the relationship I have with someone, if I commit any atrocities, I am doing that. I'm breaking the covenant with God. Now, looking at it from that angle, it seems as if you're looking at it from that, just the way he analyzed it, you would say, oh, he's speaking out of fear. But I want you to also look at it that when you look at the enlightened one, it doesn't look like someone who is afraid. His domino or his personality does not come from fear. I know when I see religious people who speak out of fear, he is speaking out of even confidence. The only difference is that, let's put it this way, and I would like you, Rusty, to think about this that I want to say. The best way to teach a child not to commit a crime is to instill fear first in the child, because the child does not already have the knowledge and understanding. So fear is the first thing you teach a child with. Don't touch that electricity, it can kill. Don't put your hands in that fire, it can destroy. Don't do this, it can do this. Now you have to use fear to teach a child anything. You cannot use love, because love, I can say, I love you. Don't touch it because I love you. The child sometimes will just feel like, I know he loves me, but I can still touch it. You instill fear to awaken the the consciousness of that child that there's a repercussion for doing this. Now, I'm not saying I raise my children with fear. I'm saying I have to let them understand that there's something dangerous here. And so when Christianities or when most religious people speak, if they perceive that you are just growing in the spiritual sense, they have to use fear in the first place. Let us look at the Bible itself. Before God was able to show himself to other people, God had to instill fear. From the time of Noah, God had to instill fear. From the time of from Garden of Eden, God had to instill fear inside Adam and Eve. Do not eat from this apple tree. If you eat from this apple tree, surely that day you will die. That is fear. When they ate it, they became naked and they were afraid. When he chased them out of the garden, they were afraid. When Cain killed Abel, God had to curse him so he will feel the fear. Because when God was asking him, where is your brother? And he was asking God, am I my brother's keeper? God have to do something. Sometimes the idea of punishment is to instill a little bit of fear in that person so the person does not repeat that same thing. So when people are speaking from religious angle, they would most likely teach people from fear. Rusty, trust me, you and I can only speak based off the angle we understand people know. I have read the Torah, some part of the Torah. I've read the lost book of the Bible. I've read the Sumerian tablet. I have read some part of the Egyptian mystery. And if I speak on all these things, most people would not understand what you and I are saying. If you and I tell people that Adam had two wives, which is Lilith and Eve, a lot of people would not understand what we are saying. In fact, they would think we are just saying garbage. So for the sake of what they know, we would actually have to speak based off what they know, which is the Bible, the 66 books that most of them have read. You're right. When you look at this story, even from the angle of Torah, looking at the angle of the lost book of the Bible, you know, Lilith actually appeared a little bit demonic when it was in the lost book of the Bible. Now, in the lost book of the Bible, the scripture did not indicate the serpent. The scripture indicates a woman, and the woman was Lilith. That the devil was appearing to Adam as Lilith. So if we try also to over understand all these things, we might get confused at the end of the day. So we are just only going to pick the stories out of it and make sense out of these stories, because we know that both Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel and all these things, logically, who are the people writing the stories? The people that just came to earth that God just created, or the people that just evolve? Science says we evolve. Bible says God created us as this. So did we evolve, or did we evolve as science, or did God create us as this? One of it has to be true. And if one of them is true, the other has to be false. But we also have to ask ourselves, the kind of intelligence we have right now, compared to the intelligence of our great-grandfather, maybe let's say 5,000 years ago, how similar are they? I think they are different. The perception they have is kind of different. A lot of abilities we have today, we did not have it during that time. Now, for us to even go a little bit deeper, let us ask ourselves a question. Adam and Eve, how did they start speaking to themselves? How did they understand their language, each other's language? How long did they take to teach each other their language? Because according to, I've even forgotten this particular book I read, and it's very ancient book. The way people kind of communicate during that time, sometimes they use signs, they use symbols to be able to communicate. Then people do not flow with words that much, because the words we say today, we learned those words. We evolve by speaking words. So if we want to actually go into the idea of the religious aspect, if I want to go as a person trying to look into the Bible, and someone is coming to me with the scripture or the Bible itself, because there's a difference between the scripture and there's a difference between the Bible. The scripture ends in Malachi. Bible started from Matthew. And besides, the Bible is called the Bible because it has 66 books and it doesn't occupy the scripture. And the scripture was actually written in scroll. So looking at it from all this angle, if we have to dive into all these stories, most of them are not believable. Most of them are not believable. Moses was the person who wrote all these books. And if Moses wrote all these books, God cannot sit down to start telling Moses, in my own view, God cannot sit down to start telling Moses, this is what, then Adam went to cook soup, and Eve cooked a soup, and then Eve went, and when he went to this particular place, he did. God cannot be analyzing it. The question is this: what is the point? Why was God telling Moses all these stories? Because Moses was the first person who started writing the scripture according to the Bible. The story of Noah, everything was being written by Moses. Noah did not write any book. Adam and Eve did not write any book. Cain and Abel did not write any book. Seth, the grandfather of Noah, did not write any book. Everything was written by Moses. Moses was the founder of the writers of everything. So how did Moses know, even when his people have been in the land of Egypt for 430 years? Was he looking at it from the Egyptian tablets? From the Egyptian mystery? So we cannot, for the sake of the religious people, we will let them be. When someone is being religious and they have to hold on to a story, because the reality is this: a story has to make sense to people for people to believe in something. And sometimes most people believe, you imagine when we were children, how a lot of us believed in Santa Claus. How a lot of us, we call them in Nigeria, in Africa here, we call them Father Christmas. I believed as a child that Santa Claus was real. Most of them, yes, you're right. Most of them are just symbolism to give people the sense, to give the Israelites. I think Moses did most of all these things to give the Israelites a sense of God is speaking through me. How did this word begin? A lot of people would be willing to know. If you tell me God is the King of Kings, is the Lord of Lords, is the beginning and the end. He was the creator of heavens and earth. Now, when he was even telling them that God was the creator of heaven and earth, he never knew there were other planets. So, children believe in Santa Claus, regardless of the fact that they are afraid of Santa Claus, but because Santa Claus gives them gifts, they go close to it. It took a time. I was in primary 4 when we were celebrating, they call it end of the year party, and then I saw one man entered into a particular building and I saw him came out as Santa Claus. That was the day I realized, oh, so I've been bullshitting myself. And I believed in Santa Claus so much that I don't want to hear I don't want anyone to tell me that Santa Claus was not fake. That was how much I believed. And as I grew and I began to look at the religious perspective, I realized why people could destroy each other simply because someone did not believe in what they believe in. It makes sense. True. All these things I'm saying is referring back to the enlightened one. And the enlightened one is coming from the angle of, is speaking from a religious perspective. And the moment you speak from religious perspective, you can speak from only two angles. You can speak from either fear or you can speak from either love. Now, fear is the first one to make us aware. When God was visiting the people of the Israelites, God did not visit them with love. You can remember the time they told Moses that they want to speak to God. God had to instill fear. A lot of them died. Do we know if that's true or not? Maybe that's true. A lot of them died. Now, before God sent Jesus, who started talking about love, every communication between God and the Israelite was always with fear. It wasn't with love. And that can make sense a little bit because when you are raising children, the first thing you want your children to do is to know what they should fear. They should identify danger. And because children should identify danger, if your children can identify danger earlier, it tells you how safe they would be. So, looking at it like a symbol from God to man, maybe that's what it means. And when I use the word God to man, only me and you can understand what I mean when I say God. So, in this aspect, it would talk about from the angle of, okay, you can speak from fear, but I don't think a enlightened one is afraid of anything. I don't think he lives in fear. In fact, let me put it to you. At least if you listen to what enlightened one says, it says it's a Nigerian. Nigerians are one of the people that they rarely get afraid of certain things. They rarely get afraid of certain things. Not the idea of God. Even if we try, even when I was religious, I tried to be afraid of God. When I was still in my religious mind, I tried my best. Like, I like this God. Let me try to be afraid of him. When I started reading the Proverbs and they are saying the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, I'm like, okay, what does it mean? How do I fear you? So he's not speaking from that angle. It's just that we didn't get everything clearly. So please, this is what I would do. I would say, Rusty, it might not be time. You might have a lot of stuff you're doing. We don't necessarily have to come on live and speak, but at least clarify some things and understand few things. Everyone approaches things differently. Everyone sees things differently. But it would be better if we can have clear understanding of what our intentions are, not because of now. If you try and understand the enlightened one, that we might see the same trace happen in the life as we continue these particular conversations we always have. Someone might come up and say something and we can say, oh, I can relate to that. Maybe that's not what that person means. Maybe we can now help the person to correct it, what the person actually meant by the statement they are saying. So if you think that there's any possibility to a time when you would like to at least just listen, let's just communicate. My number is always there. You can always chat me up on WhatsApp. My number is on my page. You can always chat me up on WhatsApp. So with that being said, by 7 p.m. today, there's already a notification. By 7 p.m. today, I and the enlightened one will be coming and we'll be touching on many other subjects. In fact, one of the things that I love to mostly focus on, but because I have a lot of what do they call it? A lot of collaboration this week. I have many collaboration this week. Because of that, um, I would try to always chip in my intention, which is about welcoming, uniting Africans and the blacks and every other person for us to see things from different angle. So whenever I'm discussing with people, sometimes I'll keep chipping it in. So when I'm done this week, by next week again, I can focus on this particular stuff. Funny enough, when we talk about subject like this, I see that ladies, women who are actually facing the challenges in the black culture, who always say that, oh, Africans are not welcoming and the rest of it, most of them are running. Even the ones who would tell me that, oh, we would like to join you live, who would want to join, at the end of the day, most of them are kind of scared, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I'm really confused. I don't know what's going on. It's like the government is telling them that, oh, if you speak about this, something would happen tonight, but it will be during work. Okay. What's the time in UK right now? I think UK time and our time are almost the same. UK time and African time is almost the same. As Nigerian time is almost the same, because I have a friend there. It's like maybe 1 hour difference or almost similar, like 1 hour difference. With that being said, please, I would love those who can join. 11:40 a.m. Let me see our time. Yes, you're right. The same thing here. 11:40 a.m. So that means you're on night shift or night duty. Uh, uh, uh. Okay. Just try if you can join, or maybe you watch it later. But if you join, I also appreciate. If you can't, I understand. I understand. Hopefully, work be quiet though, so you should be able to have a chat. Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. So for those of us who haven't subscribed, please do subscribe to the channel. Today by 7 p.m. we're going to be having a deep conversation. I most likely might come by 3 p.m. or something, touch on few subjects also, and then we wait till 7 p.m. when we have the full conversation. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. I appreciate those of us for joining. I had something to discuss, but as we continued the conversation, I was like, okay, let me just round up on this particular side. By 3 p.m. probably today or 4, I would come on live for maybe like 30 minutes and then wait till 7 p.m. So if you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe to the channel, like, share, join membership, support. With that being said, take care of yourself. Adios, amigos. Bye bye for now. Peace.